I'm joined in studio by Nosipho. She's the CEO of the Bombela Group and author of Finding the Woman Within. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this evening. Let's go a little bit back. You studied accounting and finance in South Africa in the late 1980s. Give us context on what was that like and what you believed your future was going to be considering the political context.
Good evening. It was actually a very difficult time, and therefore just making that decision to break the line and go into accounting was a bold step. And just finishing the degree in accounting, you would know what would happen to you in terms of where we would get proper employment. The biggest target for us studying in black universities was at least I must go into the top 5 in terms of getting employment with the audit firms. And to cut the story short, I actually got into audit firms by actually applying for a job for bookkeeping and turned the interview around to get into articles.
Okay. So since then, you've worked as the vice president at massive companies. Also, you're the CEO at Bombela. What would you say about that space in terms of representation of women?
It's still a big challenge. So we see a lot of publicity in the few of us that are actually making it into these positions. There's a whole lot more of bright women that are not getting the opportunity. So it's still very much male dominated. I was shocked when I got into the Bombela environment and realized still how many men are sitting in the proper CEO positions and roles. And I think the transport industry, which is what I represent, we still have a long way to go. Mm-hmm. But globally, this problem is still there. If you find the UK saying that there's still quotas to get women into boards, it just says that the challenge is still going ahead.
Okay. So you were the first woman in history, not just in South Africa, to be a port manager. Talk to us a little bit about what that is. And then there's been these increasing calls for us to stop celebrating, in particular, the first woman in certain spaces or the first black person in certain spaces. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it was a difficult time. I was actually pregnant. I was 7 months pregnant when I got the job. And I had to induce my baby, and in 10 days' time I was in Singapore, because when you are a pioneer, you have to think about the people coming after you. So it was quite challenging. The other thing was it was a new industry for me because I'm an accountant. So just to get in and talk about TEUs and all the language that is used in the port environment, working with predominantly white male who actually understand the language and have been there for years, was a big challenge.
Mm-hmm. So when you were at the Richard Bay coal terminal, it's reported that you worked day and night and that you even physically were moving coal in shifts. You're someone who said that you used to sleep for 3 to 4 hours. What's the importance of rest, and how much do you think that plays a role in success?
I think I discovered rest later in life. I'm actually understanding now the importance of weekends. So I think earlier on in my life, I was very much driven in terms of just working throughout and working and sleeping those 3 hours. Again, having to set the example, us women still have to work 3 times as hard to actually just match our counterparts. Mm-hmm. So rest is very important, and it's something that I'm really practicing hard right now.
Mm-hmm. When women CEOs in particular are interviewed and women in positions of power, there's always a question about work-life balance, which men perhaps don't get asked as much about. Talk to us, especially with that example that you gave us, inducing your baby early so that you could prove something and carry on working, how important that is, and how you would suggest that people who are in similar positions to you or want to get there would deal with that balance.
I'm actually realizing that most women are still asking that question of work-life balance. I have a boss who call it a scam because it's never really practical. But I do think that we strive to actually strike the balance because we're still mothers. And, you know, most of us are still wives, so you have to balance it out, and the fact that at work nobody sympathizes with the fact that when you get home you're a mom. And I do think that work-life balance is something that we have to strive towards all the time, because it's not going to come by itself, and it's a very difficult subject to manage, to be honest. And there is no silver bullet in terms of how it is that you master working work-life balance.
You've spoken about going undercover in certain jobs to look at the way your employees work, and you said that that's something that you feel CEOs and people in power in particular are not looking at enough.
I think employee engagement is one of the serious matters that leaders should look into. Because if you don't understand what people are doing on the ground, there is no way that you can come up with strategies that resolve the issues on the ground. So for me, I think the biggest driver, and I think Leadership 101 should actually be going back to saying that happy employees breed happy customers.
You've written this book, The Woman Within, that you're holding in your hand now, where you share lessons from your journey. Talk to us about what you would say the most important takeaway from that is within that discussion of women in the corporate space and underrepresentation.
I think the big thing for us as women leaders is to take ourselves to work as women. We must realize that we built differently from men. Men have got egos, we have intuition. So let's not try hard to actually bring the ego game and also try very hard to be men in our roles, because I think we become great leaders as women by just bringing ourselves to work.
You've said that this thing about the first woman is it's okay to celebrate yourself as the first woman, but then there needs to be a next step. What's that next step?
I think for me, it's criminal to celebrate being the only woman in the boardroom. Being the first woman is okay because somebody must get there first, but as soon as you come in, you must kick doors and get more women so that at least there's more people that are sitting in the boardroom with you, because you can't just say, I'm happy that I'm the only woman. And I see a lot of people actually enjoying that, but I've seen a lot of women developing other women in terms of making sure that we are not alone in the boardrooms.
So what's the problem with that number, with that underrepresentation of women? Because we know that women are graduating in large numbers across all sectors. So why are they not getting to the top as quickly as men?
I think the structure of the corporate is very much designed for men, and they support each other more than we do, and I think we are actually taking strides now to support each other. And I think what will actually happen to change that is women standing up for other women to actually make sure that we pull each other up to close the gap.
Thank you so much for your time on SABC News this evening. Nosipho Damasane, CEO at Bombela Group and author of Finding the